Librarians Conference. So thank you so much for coming and joining me, and hopefully we can learn a lot and have some fun together today. If you were here early, you heard my lament that I forgot my clicker, so I'm going to be a little out of my comfort zone. As our kind introductory speaker shared a little bit about me, I've had a long and interesting pathway into education that has led me here now to, after 26 years in public education, I now do this work full time and have found I sort of get to play like the fun aunt or like the grandmother role, because I get to go into schools and I get to feed them the candy and do all the great things, and then I get to go home. So it's kind of a nice new role for me, but it also allows me to connect with so many amazing people. So I'm excited to share some thoughts with you today. My last bullet there, my last role, I think is probably though my most important, and it certainly wasn't in my bio, but I am a mom of 2 boys. They are in 3rd and 5th grade, and so anytime I'm traveling, I always put a slide about my kids in there, because I feel like it grounds me to what this is all about, right? If I'm out talking with educators and I'm not thinking about kids and bringing it back to what is important for young people in their literacy development, in their engagement in schools and libraries, then I'm probably not doing the right thing, right? So there they are, wild and crazy boys. Do we have any other boy moms in the room? Whew, all right. I thought, oh Lord, please, I just want girls, and won't that be so fun, and we'll do our hair and play princesses, and now I spend my life either on a baseball field or in an ice hockey rink. But I couldn't imagine it any other way. So show of hands, and show of hands, let's do like a 3, a 2, or a 1. Give me a 3 if you feel like you do a lot of maker learning, or maybe your library houses a maker space. 2, maybe it's kind of an emerging thing for you, you're still learning a little bit about it. And 1, this is something that is brand new, you're just tiptoeing in. So give me a 3, a 2, or a 1. All right, kind of look around, look at your colleagues a little bit. We're all over the board, a lot of 2s and 3s, great, welcome. So I shared with some friends who came in a little bit early, like, full disclosure, I'm not a librarian, but boy do I love books. I feel like I have a little problem with that. When my children were little, my husband was like, are there enough books in their room, do you think? And I'm like, no. Is there ever a thing where there could be enough? And still to this day, even though my boys will tell you publicly, like they're not, oh, I don't love reading, they are lying, because their rooms are filled with books and they love all the fabulous characters, and it is like our favorite time in the evening before bed to kind of sit and read together. And so my 5th grader, he's getting to the point where he's a little too cool for that, and I say, like, he's lying to you boys. He really likes to snuggle up at night and read a good book, even if it's, Captain Underpants or something silly, right? So I do love books. I feel like we have that certainly in common. And as we work together today, I'm hoping that we talk a little bit about the importance of higher engagement when it comes to ELA. And when I say that, I say reading, writing, speaking, listening, all of those things and how they merge together. I hope that you will discover some ways that you might remake that instruction in your classroom, library space, media center, and maybe we'll do a little bit of exploration of some maker learning ideas. I will share lots of books that are paired with different activities that either students of mine have done or that I've gone and done with schools students with schools across the country. And so, most importantly, I hope you have fun. I hope there's something that you take away today that you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to try that when I get back to school. So, I feel like books are a possibility. If we're doing our job right, they open up our imaginations, they help students, learners, readers figure out that it's not just a book, right? It's a chance to engage in something great. It's a chance to be inspired or connect with a character. And so the idea of possibilities, I believe, helps students, learners, readers to make long-lasting connections. And so we are going to look for some possibilities together right now. When you came in, there were some materials at the end of each row. If you didn't grab some, or if there weren't enough, I will be happy to hand some out. You need this, a very important, very technical tool today. I hope you have a certification in how to use these. It's very important. You should also have a paper. It looks like this. Does anybody need some? Oh my goodness. More hands? Oh, thank you. Anybody else? All right, so we're looking for possibilities. Possibilities in this very, very simple tool in front of you. And the challenge that I'm going to engage you in right now is called 25 uses. Has anybody ever done 25 uses before? Awesome. So here's the goal. You have a simple object in your hand, right? We're familiar with it. I want you to brainstorm as many ways as you can to use this object, and I would encourage you to think in an unconventional way, right? Use your imagination. Think of the possibilities, but here's the thing, I'm only going to give you a few minutes. So we're going to take like 2.5 minutes, and I want you to see how many uses you can come up with for this simple tool. Are we ready? Your 2.5 minutes start now. Oh, I love it. My friend in the back is modeling hers. Other people are fiddling and manipulating theirs, right? That's what kids would do. They want to discover new materials just like we do. Sometimes have 5 ideas. Sometimes don't want to write on their paper, they're writing notebooks. I appreciate that. How many can you come up with? You used half of your time. Some of you designers are very serious about your role. Serious faces. Some are taking a sillier approach. All right, 30 seconds left.
You have to do this to us at the beginning of the day.
It's your warm-up. Get the juices flowing. All right, wrap up your last idea if you would. Okay. Do we have someone who is willing to share one of, maybe choose the one that you think is your most creative, most imaginative, most outlandish idea? What did you come up with for your use for this very technical tool?
This isn't outlandish, but my kids use it to stitch together cardboard.
Oh. Wow. To stitch together cardboard, how all of the items from the book that he will retell. He puts in a garbage can with a lid, and then he pulls out each piece, and it allows him to retell the story. And one of the, we're doing Og the Frog, and his exploring according to Og the Frog. And at one point in the story, the teacher loses her glasses, and we did just that. We made pipe cleaner glasses, and that's going to be one of his items as he's telling his story. Yes?
Text box for like a graphic page that's tactile.
Oh, say a little bit more about that.
So like if have the kids create a graphic page or a graphic story, and the text box could be used as pipe cleaner, in a like a more of a tactile, where they're using different things to create the pictures.
Love that. Love that. Yes.
In that vein, I wrote down use it as a ruler or straight edge.
Oh, a straight edge, or even like a non-standard measuring tool. Oh, there you go. So someone up here said, oh, you're doing this to us first thing in the morning, right? But it gets your mind thinking a little bit, and again, in that theme of possibility, right? This material that I gave you isn't fancy, it's not very costly, but most of you came up with at least 10 things. Some people almost filled up their whole paper, just brainstorming some simple ideas, right? I love that you also connected some of your thoughts to books, right? I think that's sort of our nature. But think about what kids might do, right? If we handed them all a pipe cleaner while we were doing a read aloud, right? I mean, I've done that with students where for some of them, I'm gonna pick on you, for some of them it's just a fidget, right? Like I'm listening to you, but I'm gonna kind of twirl this. But then in the middle of the story, when I stop and say, oh, all right, what's happening with this character? Show me something with your pipe cleaner that tells a little bit about what this character's thinking or what you think they're gonna do next. Or do they have a problem that needs solved? Can we do something with this very simple tool to solve it? Right? It gives them some time to do some thinking within a read aloud, and then prompts them to use their imagination a little bit. It might have even been different if I said, okay, now for the next minute, you can combine and work with the person next to you, or work with a group of 4. Now you have more materials. How might the increasing of materials change what you design or make or do? And then not only that, but the collaboration of more brains into a project, you might come up with some really different ideas. So hopefully that's one that you will take with you. On the back of your paper, I listed 25 more items, everyday household, classroom, cupboard, drawer items that you could do this very same activity with, as either a warm-up or an icebreaker or something to just get kids thinking about materials. Or maybe you want to do it with a material that is newly introduced to your space. So how many folks know Strawbees? A few? They're plastic straws and connectors. And the first time I brought them into our makerspace, I did something like this and said to the kids, here you go. I just want you to think of all the ways that these materials work together, and it was used for exploration. So they started to think, well, this connector does multiple, I can put multiple pieces on there and it looks more like, my hand. Oh, but when these two joints come together, I can make some right angles, right? So it's a way that they can kind of generate some ideas in a very hands-on way in your space. Another highly technical tool, we have the craft stick, right? Again, you can buy them at the dollar store, but how many people love this author, right? These are from some of our kindergarten students who did the not a stick, right? So we give everyone a craft stick, and at age 5, we have some kids who are quite creative, and we have other kids who are looking at this stick going, what in the world does she want me to think this is? It's a pop. I eat my popsicles on this. Or, I had an ice cream sandwich, ice cream from the ice cream man the other day, right? But we need to get them thinking in creative ways about what else it might be. So very simple projects like these, again, connected to books, allowing our students to think about different possibilities.
Do we have access to these slides, or do we need to?
Well, I'll say this. copy of the book. At the end of this session, I will give you access to whatever information you want today, okay? Sure, thanks for asking. All right, this is packing material of some sort. A fabulous STEM friend of mine, if anybody's, we were talking about STEM earlier. If you don't follow Daily STEM, you have to. Chris Woods, a dear friend of mine, posted this on Twitter a while back and got something like 1,000 people responding about what they would use this for in their classroom. Right, I mean, it's just kind of an unusual thing. I think he said it held mugs. Right, but I thought about this and I said, well, what do kids think this would be? We had kids say that they wanted to use it for clay to make BB-8s from Star Wars. Right, it kind of looks like that. But giving kids unusual materials is a way to open up those possibilities and allow them to create together. So, part of my message in Remaking Literacy is around this idea that I believe that everybody is a teacher of reading. By trade, I have my reading specialist certificate. I taught first grade for a while, which is fabulously rewarding because kids are coming in, and that is the grade where they spend the most time developing their reading skills at any other point in their entire life. And so when I wrote this book, I said, you know, to me, it doesn't matter if you teach social studies, if you teach math, if you teach science, we're all teachers of reading. Librarians and the folks that work in the library with you, we are all facilitating a love of reading and interest in reading, and hopefully helping students to develop that lifelong interest. Not everybody buys into this fact. I believe that making, hands-on making, really supports reading development. And there's lots of reasons why. There's some research out there that says when students do things like talk, reflect, note take, and grapple with ideas, it helps them to build understanding. Well, my argument just is, can't we allow them to do that also with their hands? Right? So many of our learners need more than just that book learning. They need more than just seeing the words to develop as readers. And so when we're identifying new words or when we're making predictions, all those great things that good reading teachers do anyway, my argument is let's just pair it with something hands-on. And it doesn't have to be fancy. It can be like a pipe cleaner or Play-Doh, right? It can be paper. It can be any material that you have accessible, because when we pair it with their literacy development, it starts making some connections for them. And maybe not for all readers, but I would argue, I would say for most. And my definition of remaking literacy just means that we combine the content of English language arts with the relevance of maker learning. This is my definition of making. I feel very fortunate. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I feel very fortunate to be living in a town where creativity and culture and art and museums and medicine and all of these wonderful things all collide in the city of Pittsburgh. We have a fabulous children's museum that has a make shop. And I feel like I kind of learned my way by working with folks at the make shop. And I think making can mean breaking, right? It can mean hacking and deconstructing and getting messy and combining things, maybe unusual things. It means building and designing. It means art. It means composing. And all of those things, again, I believe, completely pair with our work that we do in getting kids to love and engage in books. So as, and I'm sorry, young lady who introduced me, your name? Claudia. As Claudia said, the first book I ever wrote was called STEAM Makers. And I was very interested in how STEM education could connect with maker education. And so you see sort of my intersection here of STEM and maker and STEAM and literacy, and in the middle of all of that, I feel like is remaking literacy. So if you come from a school that is very STEM focused, that's okay. You have a pathway to this learning as well. If your school is very focused on STEAM because the arts are prevalent, great. You have an entry point into this work as well. I think that remaking is the best part of all of these things sort of educator, presenter, speaker. If you don't know her, please look her up. You've probably seen this information in one way or another. Maybe it didn't look this way, but it is from the research of Edgar Dale, which is actually kind of old research. It's from 1969, and way back then, he said that if students are just reading, they will remember about 10%. 20% of what we hear, 30% of what we see. Right, but then look at the very top. He argued that we remember 90% of what we say and do. For example, if we're making a video or building a robot or doing a presentation. I mean, I don't know about you. I visit lots of schools who live right here. And if we believe that his research was correct, then shouldn't we be living up here? Right, if we really want kids remembering, yes?
And writing would be part of doing, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, some examples here: dramatic presentation, making a video, creating an animation, building a robot. But yeah, I mean,
Right.
writing a play, writing a poem, writing a comic strip, writing dialogue between characters. Absolutely. So this really has resonated with me a lot, and it takes me back to childhood. And if there's anybody who's maybe my age, this was a story that I was told. My fourth grade teacher, when we came in from recess, we would all lay on the floor and he did this read aloud. And I remember envisioning the characters. It was way before it was a movie, but boy, there was a movie running through my head. And I remember thinking, like, oh my God, like this ice castle, how cool that would be. Oh, I could envision walking through the wardrobe with the heavy coats, right, and stepping out into the snow. And it was so vivid to me. And then that was it. Right, it was a great read aloud, and he asked great questions, and it activated all of that understanding. But as a fourth grader, I just wanted to build this. Like, I wanted somebody to say, like, let's make an ice castle. Let's look at the sleigh that ice queen is coming in on. Let's build a wardrobe. What is a wardrobe? How big should it be? What could we make it out of? Right? And I think so many times we fall short of extending that thinking and allowing kids to do something with their hands. Now, he made this memorable, obviously. I'm 48 years old and I'm still talking about what happened in fourth grade. Right? But how much more powerful it would have been had we been able to do something creative, imaginative with our hands. So, as I was telling that story, I'm sure many of you got that same idea in your head about a book that really did that for you. A book that you connected with, or a character that really resonated with you. Anybody have one of those? Like, for me, it's just The Lion, the Witch, and Wardrobe, always. Does anybody have a book like that boy, you just loved it so very much, you wanted to make something? Tell us. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, and I have just a small room off my bedroom that's sort of my Harry Potter room, and I mean, I've put together like 3D puzzles and things like that, and I have a handmade wand, and I know it's really juvenile,
But listen, your love of the story allows you to create in a way that fuels your passion. Like, don't we want that for kids? Yeah. Anybody else have a book example? Yes.
the Boxcar Children, and I read it in third grade, and I wish I still would like the Boxcar in my backyard. That story was phenomenal, and I just loved it, so it's still
Yeah, I mean, what
been lasting.
a great example, right? Boy, I wish that was, can we build that in my backyard? Right? Can you imagine going home and, telling your family, hey, we're going to build this in our backyard today? Rosie?
I actually did
ideas and details and main idea, right? Well, isn't that a way for them to show that they understand the important details, right? They're pulling out the things that were really critical to either developing setting or the plot of the story, and those are the kind, you're speaking to me, Rosie, I love that. One of the things that I love doing is having kids design and make for characters, like beloved characters. And so my example here, is Curious George. And oftentimes, when we have longer hands-on workshops, I do an activity where I give everybody a card of a character, and maybe it's, Pete the cat or Clifford the red dog. Familiar characters from reading series usually work well because kids feel like they know them, right? And then I ask kids to design for that character, right? So imagine if we were designing for Curious George, and I make it a little game, and we roll a dice, and then Stephanie's group rolls 3, and so then they have to create some kind of accessory for Curious George, right? Was it Neely? Yes, love that name. Neely's group rolls a 1 on their dice, so they need to make some sort of a home for Clifford the big red dog. Or they need to make some sort of transportation for Pigeon, and it can't be a bus, right? So thinking just creatively about characters that kids know and love is a great way to get them doing something hands-on. I've seen lots of my teacher friends use some of these cards and just put them in a center or an area where making and creating works for them in their space, whether it's a classroom or library makerspace, and give some simple materials, give a roll of a die, and have kids just engage in different iterations of, okay, this time we're going to build for this character. Oh, next time we're going to build for, what's his name? Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Greg Heffley. Right, so quick, easy, very game-like, but connected to characters that kids know and love. A lot of folks reach out to me on social media and say, this is all well and good, but I don't really have a big budget. How do I get all this stuff? So years ago, I made this list from A to Z, and most of it is stuff that is simple and free, not all. It's hard when you get to some of the letters to kind of think of something. Like O, I put O's of odds, they're not very expensive, right? But I try to make it low budget, because the last thing I want to do is come and speak to people and then tell you need things that cost you lots of money. So I also have that list and an updated list that I did with Chris Woods, who I mentioned earlier, Daily STEM, and we have a blog post out about that. So when I choose books that I believe inspire making or STEM learning, I think about 3 things. I think about the content of the book. I think about if there's a theme, either a theme that runs through the story or a theme in which the book was made, like the medium in which it was made. And then I also think about the dispositions of the characters. So these are some of my favorites when it comes to content. Right? I just love reading the content of stories like Papa's Mechanical Fish, because kids get to feel the productive struggle of coming up with 1, 2, 3 iterations of his, fabulous underwater vehicle. I love reading Young Frank Architect. Right? It's this beautiful. Do we have anybody know and love this book already? No? Oh my goodness. So Young Frank has a whole day ahead of him, and he decides to spend it with his grandfather, who's also named Frank, and they decide to go on a little trip to the Museum of Modern Art. And they see all sorts of different displays at the Museum of Modern Art, but they particularly are drawn to one about chairs. And so they get to see these very interesting, uniquely designed chairs on the display. And so when they get back home, they start building their own. Out of books and toilet paper and cups and saucers and lamps and all sorts of things, right? Using that thought of possibility. possibilities. What can we use to possibly create a chair? And it just turns into a fabulous day of building for both of them. I like to pair this with the book, I'm Not a Chair, which is a little bit, it has a giraffe, on the front. But I love this one, especially maybe for older students. On the last page, it tells you the designers who actually made some of the famous chairs that were in that museum. So that's a good one. And again, it pairs nicely with I'm Not a Chair. But the content, right? So we just read the content and we're kind of inspired by, oh, well, they're making things. That helps me to want to make things. When I think about theme, I'm thinking about some of the medium in which either the story is created, right? Like drawn together this beautifully illustrated story where there's a lot of black and white and then color. I love to see kids kind of create in that same vein. When we do things like the story What to Do with a Box or many of those great box-related stories, obviously kids want to build with boxes. Just how long can a long string be? Great way to tie in measurement, but we also do things where kids are messing around with string. Right? Maybe they're making some string art, maybe they're weaving or learning how to tie different knots. Right? The end product necessarily isn't some big, beautiful thing, but boy, they're learning, oh, I can tie knots and make friendship bracelets, or I can make a drawbridge for my cardboard creation using string. Right? So lots of different ways to explore that. So content, theme, disposition. Disposition, I mean, what are the characters like? Are the characters thinking flexibly? Are they persevering through challenges? How do they respond when things don't go so well in their thinking and design? Right, so a great one is, Ashley Spires, How to Make a Magnificent Thing, right? We really learn the frustration of the young girl as she's designing. Very similarly, some of the stories here, I love Stuck. Do we have others who love Stuck? I think I would follow that author anywhere, Oliver Jeffers. So in the story Stuck, very unconventional character who gets his kite stuck in a tree, but instead of using the tools to get his kite out, he just keeps throwing them. So he throws his shoe, and he throws a chair, and then it just grows. He throws a house, and a whale, and a truck, and all these things, and they all get stuck in the tree. Right, so a great way to design is, I would say to my students, get out your fancy tool, right, get out your pipe cleaner. Everybody make something unconventional that this character could use to get his kite out of the tree. And they make grabbers, and they make bouncy shoes, and all of these things that speak to what they've learned about the character. I call things like that quick design, where if I'm reading something, I have kids very quickly turn and talk, maybe for a minute. I have them either write or sketch, and then I have them build something. And again, not fancy material, and not so much that it detracts from what we're reading, because I'll have them go and do that, and then come right back over and have their design as we finish out the story to see, did what they create connect with what happened in the story? If it did, great. If not, we don't worry about that. It's all about that design work. Friends, do you know novel effect? Raise your hand if you know novel effect. Okay, I'm not going to do a demonstration then, but I will just say, if anyone loves novel effect and they're on social media, I will pick 2 friends to get a free 3-month membership for it. And I also have tons of novel effect stickers. Novel effect is looking for your favorite books. So tweet them and tell them what book you would love to see on their app. They create basically the soundtrack that runs behind any read aloud. And it is fabulously engaging for students. But they're continually building their library. I love it because it just makes for a great read aloud. But even better, I love to challenge kids to do the same thing. Your book doesn't have a soundtrack? Great, let's make one. Right? Can you do the humming sound in the background? Can you do the dialogue? for you. Whoopsie. But I love when kids get to make it for themselves. Let me move quickly. So I'm big on engineering. Engineering design challenges I think are engaging for kids, simple to set up, and connect with so many stories in a really easy way. So we're going to go through a bunch. Again, I said I love Oliver Jeffers. He wrote this one, The Great Paper Caper. It is about a bear who starts chopping down all the trees in the woods to make paper because he is determined to be the paper airplane champion for like the 200th annual airplane flying contest in his neighborhood, in his forest. And so we read that story, and when kids are listening to you read it, they're thinking, oh my gosh, I just want to make a paper airplane. She's reading this story about paper airplanes. So let them make paper airplanes, right? Let's see what kind of designs we can come up. If we each make a different design, can Rosie and I combine our designs to make a bigger, better, badder airplane, right? There's lots of great challenges that you just do with one sheet of paper, right? Like how long can I make my paper by just cutting it and seeing how long it will stretch? Can I take one sheet of paper and create something that goes from 2D to 3D? Can I make a tower that stands at least 4 inches off my table? Right? Lots of one piece of paper challenges. Yes?
The book After the Fall is really good for baking paper.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, and for a good egg drop.
Yeah.
And as you'll see on each of my slides, I also pull out what I call rich or robust vocabulary, because I think if I'm going to tell you to do a good read aloud, you should also have some really rich words that you share with kids, no matter what age they are. And so I also share those. Those Darn Squirrels is about a kind of curmudgeon-y guy who has some squirrels who are driving his birds away, and so we offer challenges like maybe draw a bird feeder that is squirrel-proofed, or maybe design a way to capture those squirrels so that they no longer harass your birds. Extra Yarn is a great story by Matt Barnett. He also wrote, come on librarians, I can't think of the other. Oh, right, yep. In Extra Yarn, it's about this girl who's just knitting and knitting for everyone, and then she kind of is at a point where she doesn't have enough yarn left. She needs some extra yarn, right? But we do retelling with that, where maybe she writes the beginning and you write the middle and you write the end. We tie it together with yarn and do a retelling. Little ones love that. It's good for helping them practice tie knots, tie shoes. I wanted to include something that is physical, because not everybody just likes to make with their hands. Yoga Bunny is a great story that also can build on some mindfulness and some social emotional. I love it when we have students either sculpt those yoga poses out of clay, or we have one school that I work with who does a video morning announcement, and so each morning they model one yoga pose and encourage their classmates to try that as a stress reliever. The Secret Shortcut is a crazy adventure for two boys who are just walking to school together each day. But they take these wild adventures instead of taking the path straight there. It's kind of unusual, right? They're swinging through vines over crocodiles and alligators, and they cross a culvert, right? And I always have kids say, well, what's a culvert? We talk about that, and we figure out if we can make one out of recyclable materials in our space. We have kids who create their little town, and then they show what their secret shortcut might be. I love Dumpster Diver. It is about a gentleman who lives in an apartment building who befriends 3 children, and they literally go dumpster diving. And then they start combining the things that they have found. They get donations also from their neighbors once they realize that maybe diving in a dumpster isn't the safest choice. And so they're making like lamp skateboard skis, or toaster computer remote controls. And so they're thinking creatively about the possibility merging different items together, which makes for great design ideas. Pandemonium at Peak Zoo, absolutely love this one. Beautiful, beautiful illustrations about some animals who maybe don't stay in their areas quite the best. Turns into some drama at one point. But we have students who create some animal enclosures, and they think of some creative ways where maybe they might have a lock on their door or something that might keep all of the animals safe. An oldie but goodie. These are cardboard designs. We have some schools where we partner our upper students with some of our primary students. And so they read a common story, one like Charlotte's Web, that kind of appeals to both ends of the spectrum. And then we have them collaborate. And this example is first graders and eighth graders who are working together to create cardboard designs. And that's their design in Charlotte with all the little babies on the back. It's getting to be that time. Emma's poem. Do we have folks who know Emma's poem? Just a couple. Talks about through the voice of the Statue of Liberty. And so we had a middle school librarian who shared this story with her students, sixth graders, who then in turn built a historical monument or a well-known figure. We have Big Ben, Eiffel Tower, right? And they wrote from the perspective of that building, just as if, the Statue of Liberty, we're writing from that perspective. So great language arts tie in there. And perspective, I think, is sometimes hard for kids. So good children's literature tie-in. All right, so I say there's lots of other ways to remake. Definitely, if you're interested in things like vocabulary, fluency, ways to incorporate writing and speaking and listening, there are lots of great ideas in the book that share those. And let me just get to the end. All right. That was fast and furious. I'm glad people were taking pictures. I hope that means that there were books or ideas that resonated with you. I will say that I have a session this afternoon at 2 that I'm doing on creating for social good. And I'll be highlighting some books and some project ideas that students will engage in to promote positive social action, being a good global citizen. If you are interested in coming back during that time, I think I'm actually right in your space. I have books if anybody is interested in buying a copy of Remaking Literacy. I also have another book that I wrote that is similarly tied in called Unlock Creativity, that has a ton of creative ideas that are simple to use in classrooms and libraries for kids and for adults. So I will share those if anybody is interested. Do we have, I don't have time to look on social media, do I? Do I have anybody who says, yep, I tweeted something out about novel effect? Just 1, 2. Well, those are the first 2 hands I saw. There's a free trial, free month membership. If anybody wants a novel effect sticker, come up and see me. If anybody is interested in a book, come up and see me.